Welcome back. On February 22nd, representatives from various groups, including South Bronx Unite, the Mott Haven Port Morris Community Land Stewards, and Alembic Community Development, came together to celebrate the vision of the future H.E.Arts Community Center. South Bronx nonprofit organizations have a vision for the new building that blends services for holistic health, education, and the arts all under one roof. The co-founder and board member of South Bronx Unite and the Mott Haven Port Morris Community Land Stewards, Mychal Johnson, joins me to discuss the project. Thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Now, can you tell me what inspired the creation of the H.E.Arts Community Center?
Well, I live in Mott Haven in the South Bronx. And as you know, in our community, we have a lot of health disparities. And those health disparities have led to poor educational outcomes. We live in District 7, which is one of the poorest performing school districts in the city. And health disparities, I mean high rates of asthma, obesity, diabetes, you name it, it's hit us really hard. So as a resident, as a parent, as a member of our community, and others came together to create this organization, to create this health and education in the Arts Center, but it came through the envisioning of the community, right? It's something we saw, a vacant city-owned property that was vacated in 2011 that had a lot of history, but now was vacant. And we know that was an asset that we need to claim for our community, that we need to create the kind of self-determination and the kind of results we need as residents, or else it turns into something that we don't need or we don't really want. And so through envisioning, we envisioned and the community envisioned this project.
Now, what role does South Bronx Unite have in the development process? And, what was the moving force, the driving force behind actually deciding to be a part of it?
Yeah, South Bronx Unite is like the organizing arm for the Mott Haven Port Morris Community Land Stewards. The stewards were created to make sure we can pull public land off the speculative market, so we don't have this cycle of disinvestment in our community, creating non-affordable housing for our community members. Right? Housing's being built everywhere, but not community centers, not holistic approach to health being created for our community, where we're going to have healthier outcomes, better educational outcomes. So our community came together to say, what can we do with this vacant building? 21,000 square feet. We knew we couldn't solve all of our problems, but we could help to take off on some of them, and thought this would be a great opportunity to do that.
Now, I want to talk about the name H.E.Arts because it stands for, as we mentioned a few times, health, education, and the arts. Yeah. How do you plan on addressing each letter of H.E.Arts with the new facility?
Yeah, health first. You can't do anything if you're not healthy, right? If you can't work, you can't do anything if you don't have not only physically healthy, but mentally healthy. And we're not trying to be another provider in the medical industrial complex that exists. We don't want Band-Aids. We need to really go towards holistic approach to health, right? To where we're doing health and wellness. We're doing screenings. We're doing mental health screenings. We're looking at a different approach, and I think community always had made that part of the overall resounding message that not one and the same, but something different, that we could really create the kind of outcomes we desire. In education, again, we need to do something for extracurricular activities for our children. Where this building is located is right by Mott Haven Houses, one of the 5 major housing developments in Mott Haven, and just stone's throw from PS 49, part of District 7. But our children walk by this vacant building every day. And we've been having envisioning sessions, having H.E.Arts festivals, to show that this is something that we can create here that's for all of us. But we know that H.E.Arts for health, education, and arts is super important. Arts and culture has been our connecting tissue in our community. We are the contributors to 2 music genres, right? Also really contributes to the creation of graffiti art and multiple other different arts mediums. But we don't have a place to really do or have a place where our kids and our community can come to really relish in our deep culture and our deep understanding of how that connecting tissue of arts and culture is super important. And that culture is what makes our community rich and vibrant.
Now, can you talk about the transformation of turning this building into an actual center and a space for community? And, just what was that process like?
Yeah. Again, it goes back to the envisioning. Right now, we're in the midst of seeing a dream become reality. After the envisioning, we started doing a feasibility study. We had support from local elected officials to help to create this feasibility product that can really talk about and show in true and really written form of what the dream of the community was. And with that, we were able to advocate and push the city to release an RFP on this project, in which we then became the winning respondents of it. And we just continue to build a really strong team around having a joint venture developer, which will be part developer in this project as well. So we're making sure that we are also the guardians of this property for the community in perpetuity. They will continue to be health, education, the arts for perpetuity, to create for generations the needs that we have.
Now, I understand that the project has received support from city officials like Jose Serrano and Councilwoman Diana Ayala. Can you just talk about how important it is to have that support from, our leaders in our city?
Oh yeah, I mean, the borough president's supportive in it. I mean, I think they see that this is an answer to a lot of the woes that we have in our communities. This could be an example of how we do community-driven development from the ground up, because from the top down, it hasn't helped us a lot. It's actually contributed to some of the pains and the woes that we have. But from the ground up, we know as the experts who live in our communities what the answers can be. And so our elected officials have been really responsive to that drive and that understanding, and now they're working with us to see that dream be reality.
And to also expand on that, because I thought that was a very, just like a really great comment that, working from the ground up can help. The center will also be fully community controlled and held in perpetuity for public use.
Yes.
Can you just talk about, why this was kind of like the direction that the organization wanted to go in, and how it could actually just be a little bit more helpful to the community?
Well, we've seen what's happened to public land in our community. It's also most often created terrible health outcomes, from the Cross Bronx Expressway to the heavy saturation of diesel truck intensive operations in our communities that's causing the high rates of asthma and obesity and diabetes. We see how public land has been used and taken off as a means to give away to sometimes private developers to create things that don't benefit us. So we want to make sure that this property, this building, this land will be held in perpetuity by the community for its own public good. And we know if we don't do it that way, then it can always be at the realm of the thought or the motivation of any governor or mayor to say we're going to change and train this into public housing, or not public, or not even affordable, but market rate housing. And we know there's a need for community centers like these to be the guiding light to changing the outcomes.
And what does it look like when something is community controlled? Can you give us some examples of ways that the community will just kind of have an impact on the center?
Yeah, I mean, for an example, look at community gardens in the South Bronx or in the Bronx. And when they ran and they operated by the community, it looks like the community's been there. It doesn't look like a park. It doesn't look like it's all asphalt and very little green space. It's raised beds, it's hen coops, it's beehives. It's really rich in culture, it's representative of the community. And I think when we put our hands in steward spaces like these, different outcomes exist.
Now, can you talk about some of the other organizations you're collaborating with on this project?
Yeah, I think you mentioned Olympic Development Corporation. They are a mission-driven developer that we're sharing the responsibility as being the developers. Our organization's 51% owner of the property until they leave in 7 years. But we're going after new market, a lot of different financial mechanisms to pay for the renovation of the project. We've also partnered with institutions like Hester Street and Olympic, BKSK is our architect of record, and Nandini Bagchi is the design architect. But South Bronx Unite has teamed with organizations across the Bronx in collaborations on multiple environmental justice issues. They've all been participatory in seeing this project move forward. It's not just for us, it's for everyone in our community, and that community is Bronx-wide. It's an example of what we can do together.
Now, how has the local community been involved in shaping the development and kind of fostering the community that is the H.E.Arts Community Center?
Yeah, again, it goes to the people who live right there, who live in close proximity, not only to the structure, but live in this 2.5 square mile radius of a neighborhood of 60,000 people. They have been seeing for a decade what we've been doing to push this project forward. They've been participatory in the events we've been doing monthly during the summer, annually in front of the building, where we do a blocked off party where we are bringing on different organizations that will take part in the operations of the building. One entity is Upbeat NYC, who trains youth about all the music instruments in an orchestra for free. But they don't have the space. They're working out of 2 church basements. So this building would create an auditorium space that they could bring their students in, and we could show and highlight what our community can do.
And can you just give us some examples of some of the things, it could be feedback or just things that the community wants to see?
Yeah, I mean, they want to see how we can create something together that answers some of those questions, such as holistic approach to health, to better educational outcomes for our children. And some of the feedback we've gotten is, how do we do that with serious intentionality on bringing in partners to maybe really see that dream come about? So we've been really meeting. We've been meeting with a lot of different organizations about what they can provide in this 21,000 square foot facility that's between these 3 pillars of health, education, and the arts, to create the real the vision of H.E.Arts.
Now, it's been 10 years in the making.
Yeah.
Looking ahead, what do you hope to see for the community center 10 years from now, and how do you, see that positively impacting the local community?
I think what's going to come about in this building will be on our own envisioning. I mean, we're just putting the foundation in place for there to be this kind of collaboration to create a true holistic approach to community health that has not existed. And so what I see will happen in the next 10 or 15 years, I think it's be beyond our recognition of what the possibilities are today. That has never existed, but I think it will grow and manifest on its own. But these 3 pillars being able to live and thrive and create different opportunities, not only in Mount Haven and Port Morris, but throughout the Bronx and other communities like ours that are environmental justice communities that have been left behind for decades because of top-down decisions, that we can show what self-determination looks like from the ground up.
And can you talk, what has this done for you personally? Can you talk about, the connection? It's been a long relationship, 10 years. So, what has this, or how are you connected to this?
I see the building every morning. I live right down the block from it. I've seen what happened there before. It was a center for recovery from opioid addiction, and they would use acupuncture and Reiki as a method of recovery. That gave a lot of hope to the community. I see this building, this structure is more about what's going to happen in it than the building itself. And I know what's going to happen in that. It's going to give more hope to our community. So every day I dream, I look at it, and I keep working towards it. All of my time, volunteer time, and I'm going to get paid for the job I do, because I know the payment I'm going to receive is in our children's future. You can't get paid for that. That's more of a reward than anything we could fathom.
Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us and talking about, this project and how much it means to you. So thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
To keep in touch with South Bronx Unite efforts in making the H.E.Arts Community Center move forward, please go to their website at www.southbronxunite.org. We've come to the end of our show today. I'd like to thank all of our guests for joining us and you, the viewers, for tuning in. If you missed any part of today's show, you can catch the recable cast at 5 and 10 p.m. on Optimum Channel 67 and Verizon Fios Channel 33, or watch anytime on the web at BronxNet.org. You can catch a brand new episode of Open with Darren Hemick on Wednesday and with Rena Valentine on Friday. I'm Kibin Alleyne, wishing you and yours safety and wellness now and always. See you next time.